power supply, well, you just rate your power supply to what the PC power is, because you're not going to be pulling a lot more juice with this thing at all, so you don't need anything special to consider there. You can see here is the monitor. The mounting system is, get out of the way wires, you've seen the front of it. It's basically some aluminium bars, one on the bottom and one up the top. They are just connected to the cabinet, and the monitor sits on them because of the way it's measured. It just slots in beautifully, but then I've got a couple of extra angle brackets to hold it there. Now it's a bit of a gravity system in that it sits in place, then when the bezel goes over the top of it and the perspex, that's then held down by the two, I will call them fastening bars. That holds it all secure, so it's not going anywhere, but it just means that I can get to it and change it should the monitor ever need changing quite easily without any, too much muttering and carrying on. That's the power button. Now the power button again is connected with your 12 volt and your ground to your Molex, but what I've done is on the motherboard you've got your power switch headers that normally connects to the front of the PC, in this case on this one here. So I've disconnected that one, and I've just, from an old PC, just grabbed some wires that have those little itty bitty headers on to connect to the motherboard, and then just extended those wires. Actually, I don't know if I had to. Yeah, I did. I extended them using more wires to go to basically your ground and positive terminals on the micro switch. So all that is doing is acting as a normal PC. So you just remember to get your ground right, which is the common connection that goes to your ground on your motherboard. And if it doesn't work, well, you probably wire it backwards. So you just reverse the wires. So you've got the power board here, which everything runs into. Alright, now the speakers are mounted way up in the top, like over the screen. They're just, you can use any speakers, you can use PC speakers, you can use car stereo speakers, you just mount them, a couple of screws. These are the wires, the black and red ones, right here. They come down and they just go into the back of the subwoofer, because in this setup, this is from a PC setup, so your left and right would go into the terminals on the back, and then you got your 3.5 audio jack runs from that into the PC. So it's very simple. I do recommend using this way because it's just nice and easy, and there's no real stuffing around. And I found a pair of car stereo speakers hooked into this. Alright, we're going to look at the control panel now. So I'll just do an overview and then we'll have a bit of a better look in close. Alright, now one thing I'm a little bit guilty of is I'm not the neatest cabler in the world. I probably should tidy things up a little bit, but that's life. Sanyo. It's probably gone over everyone's head except for the ones who are a bit older. Anyway, research Sanyo. They used to make stuff. Now, in here, everything. This is your little hive of activity, if you like. I'd probably recommend, depending on who comes and goes from your house, to maybe put a lock on the front of it, because I tell you what, I came home the other day and for some reason I thought, I better have a look at the control panel to see what's going on. Now, you can see this comes from the trackball. Now, as a lot of you will be aware, I'm waiting for the little encoder, which is a little itty bitty circuit board, which plugs in. That plugs into one end, and then the USB into the other, so the trackball works. Anyway, so as a result, I now have this in there. Warning: live wires do not touch. There we go. Just to, maybe scare them to think, oh, perhaps we do not touch it. Signs sometimes work, sometimes they don't, but it's there anyway. So, back to the story. All wires for anything come up here, because basically what you're doing is you're wiring into this little iPack, which then sends your keyboard strokes. Now, I've got a keyboard here for admin purposes, and also it's good to have a wireless mouse, because it just makes life a bit easier if you're, again, doing some admin stuff. I've got a wireless controller in here. Yet to configure that. I don't know if I'll ever need it, but it's just how I got the room. So let's have a close look at one of the buttons to start with. Now I got asked yesterday too about the directions of the joystick. Now, as it would seem, I may have given some information, because you push up on the joystick and that's actually clicking the micro switch here. So it's a good idea to check these things before you wire it up and then mark them on the control panel like I have. And again, you've got your positive, which goes to your NO terminal, and then your ground. Now if you look closely at this ground wire, it's a daisy, one continuous wire with all these little headers on it. That basically just daisy chains around all of your ground connections. Every single micro switch must be grounded or it won't work. So it runs from all the buttons, so it's just, you just sort of plan it out and get through them. This is a fairly big control panel, but it makes it here. I've just run another wire off. I'll just zoom out so you can see that. Now it's a, as I said, it's a fairly big control panel. So if you look here, I've just added an extra wire to that, which runs down and looks after the coin mechanisms and that kind of business, their groundings and that. But that's fine. So back to the buttons. It's very, very simple with the buttons. Again, it's an idea to mark out what button is which, because it's easy to disorient yourself in terms of looking at it and going, oh yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you're actually upside down. So, you know, just click it and, you know, figure out, okay, it's button 1, button 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you can see. So it just gets your mind set so you know what you're doing, where you're going. Now as for mounting, they're very simple to mount, very easy. The joystick, I've got 6 carpentry screws, because it's 16mm. You can drill all the way through and use bolts. Choice is yours. I wanted to go for a clean top, and so these, by using the 6, they're sturdy. I haven't had any dramas whatsoever, and these lines were there just to square it up so it's sitting nicely. And the trackball, you cut a hole in your control panel, and then this goes up from the bottom, as you can see, and then there's a sleeve on top which goes down over it. So you've got sort of your ball that comes up, and then the sleeve goes over it, which then sits flush with the top of the control panel, as you can see. It looks really, really nice, and you know, it's low profile, but you know, your ball is sitting up nicely, and that hooks down there and then holds it in place. And then you've got these bolts which have these expanding sleeves, so you drill that 6mm into the wood, so these things fit in very, very snugly. Just, you know, tap them in with a hammer, and then these bolts simply screw into them and expand, and away you go. Now you can see there's all these little terminals here, and all the wires going into them. So for instance, all of these, you can see all these orange wires. There's 4 orange wires. You can see them over here as well. They're the joystick wires. So when you get a wiring kit, you'll get all these different colour wires, and then you'll get like a bunch of 4 orange and a bunch of 4 white. So logically I thought, well, you need 4 connections from each joystick, so I'll use them. The others, you make up whatever you want, because there's no real order to it. You just stick them in where you go. Just remember where you're going. But go one button at a time or one connection at a time. So hook up, say joystick up, and then you run it down, and you find on this side, for instance, you've got, this is a player 2, and it starts, everything is preceded with number 2. And so on the other side, everything is started with number 1. Because I can see this side better, I'll look at this. Now you've got, look and read it, up the top, you've got your ground wire. Now you need to have the ground in both those terminals. So what I have got is I've got the main ground running into the ground terminal on player 1 side, but also got a little tiny white wire which just runs around and goes into the other ground. So it's sharing a connection, but it's got it all grounded. So that's fine, but you've got to have both of those things connected, Because if your ground isn't connected, well then I just think it just won't work. So basically you get a tiny little flathead screwdriver, you open these terminals, you strip a bit of the wire bare, you pop it in, and then you tighten it up. So you've got 2 right, 2 left, 2 up, 2 down, obviously the directions for your joystick, and then, so you can see, 2 SW1, SW2, SW3, and so on through to SW8. SW, they're my initials. There you go. Fun fact. SW1 stands for switch 1. So basically, switch 1 is button 1 through to 6. So they're your basic fire buttons. And then I've used 6. I haven't used 7 and 8. You could probably use them if you wanted to, say, for flippers. In which case, what you would do is you would wire those flippers to both player 2 and player 1, switch 6 and 7, or 7 and 8, whatever you want. Not 6 and 7 because you're using 6. 7 and 8. So that way, and you would have to configure that in the controls. Once you're in there, you just go into your dip switches or your administration by hitting tab once you're in MAME, and then you go in and assign, you know, what's this button do? Bam, hit the flipper button. I haven't used flipper buttons because I'm planning on building a digital pinball table one day, so that is definitely on my to-do list. My wife is wondering where I'm going to keep it, and so am I. Once I get all these high machines built, I'll be hitting up my brother-in-law to store it at his warehouse, but that'll happen. And then we've got, back to this, we've got 2 start, which is basically your start button for, you know, one player or 2 player, and they go to the respective terminals, 1 start or 2 start. 2 coin, 1 coin, again that's your coin mechanism, and you can wire up these coin inputs to 5 switches if you want. The way I've got it is I have the coin door wired up to 1 coin, and I also have my secret button wired up to 1 coin. So that way I've got, you know, 2 options for starting. You could have a 3rd or 4th if you want. You just wire them all into the same terminal. Each terminal can have multiple buttons connected to it. So that makes life a little bit easier. 2A and 2B and 1A and 1B. Not entirely sure what they do. I guess they're assignable through MAME. And you have to assign them through MAME. This is the iPack VE, which means it stores things in its own little RAM chip. So once you turn it off, boom, it gets wiped. So you can't use the configuration utility to send the configuration to this. You have to do it within MAME. But you know, it's no biggie unless you're going to have some really intricate controls set up and mapped out. Get the VE because it's cheaper and it does the trick. And it's a lot smaller than I ever thought about. Just get back onto the joysticks for a sec. Caloundra Steve, if you watch this, I do apologise. In my email I said to you, yes, up is up and down is down. I wasn't clear. That's what a couple of wines does to you. I should have come down and checked. You push up in here, you're actually hitting, by comparison, when you can't really see from that angle, but I'm pushing up the joystick. It's actually going the opposite way down here. So this is like the bottom of the control panel. So left is right, right is left. So best to realise which way you're pushing and then write it down. So that's about it I can think of. You got any questions? Yeah, fire them off to me. So yeah, that's it. Now I'm going on to finish the project for the wife, which is this. She needs a crocodile costume for her play. So I made this out of foam rubber and polystyrene. I was going to put some pupils on there for him and some spikes on his tail. That's actually a full head mask. That's the crocodile. I'm pretty happy with that. So until next time, this has been Scotto's World.